The first time the galaxy noticed the child, she was standing barefoot on a landing platform carved from black obsidian, staring at the stars as if they were old friends who had betrayed her. Her name was Caliph. At least, that was the closest translation the human linguists could manage. She was not human, though at a distance, she might have passed for one. Her skin shimmered faintly with a pearlescent glow, shifting colors like moonlight on water. Her eyes were too large, too luminous, holding constellations no human could name. And yet she was small, fragile, a child standing at the center of the largest political storm the galaxy had seen in centuries. Caliph was the last surviving offspring of the Aurelian high bloodline, a species revered and feared for their ability to influence probability itself. Aurelians did not merely predict outcomes, they bent them. Wars had ended because an Aurelian child was born. Empires had fallen because one had died. And now, the galaxy had lost almost all of them. No one publicly admitted responsibility for the Aurelian extinction. Officially, it was called a cosmic cascade failure, a chain of stellar collapses that wiped out their home system. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. Too many powers had wanted the Aurelians gone. Too many treaties had been broken the moment the stars exploded. Caliph had survived by accident or fate. She had been off-world, visiting a diplomatic station on the edge of human space when the news arrived. In a single cycle, she became an orphan, a relic, and the most valuable being alive. The Galactic Council convened within hours. They argued for days. Some demanded she be placed under council guardianship, raised as a neutral asset. Others insisted she be trained as a living deterrent, a weapon disguised as a child. A few quietly suggested she be lost entirely to prevent future instability. Through it all, Caliph sat silently in the observation chamber, legs dangling from a chair too large for her, listening to voices echo through layers of translators. She understood more than they realized. Aurelians matured mentally faster than humans, and grief had sharpened her awareness. But none of them asked what she wanted, except one. His name was Elias Ward, a human systems engineer assigned to the station where Caliph had been stranded. He was not important enough to attend council sessions, not powerful enough to influence galactic policy. He was simply there when the alarm sounded, when the Aurelians died, and when a glowing child collapsed in a corridor because her entire species had just vanished. Elias had carried her to the medical bay himself. He stayed when the diplomats left. He brought her water, and later, food she could barely tolerate but pretended to enjoy. He spoke softly, not because protocol demanded it, but because grief did. When Caliph woke from her first sleep after the catastrophe, Elias was there, sitting awkwardly in a chair, trying not to look like he belonged. "You're safe," he told her. "I don't know for how long, but for now you're safe." She studied him with eyes that had seen futures collapse. "You are afraid," she said. He smiled weakly. "Yeah, guess I am." She nodded. "That makes you honest." From that moment on, she followed him. At first, the council tolerated it. A grieving child attaching herself to a nearby adult was expected. They assumed the bond would fade once formal guardianship was assigned. It didn't. Caliph refused to eat unless Elias was present. She slept only after confirming he was still on the station. When council representatives tried to move her to a secure residence, she screamed, not with sound, but with probability. Systems failed. Doors refused to open. Gravity fluctuated for exactly 3 terrifying seconds. The message was clear. So the council compromised. Elias Ward was assigned as her temporary caretaker until a permanent solution could be negotiated. Temporary became months. Months became years. Elias never wanted to be a father. He had lost his own family early, an industrial accident on Mars, long before he'd learned how to grieve properly. He lived simply, worked quietly, and avoided attachments that could be taken from him. Kalith changed that. She asked questions no one else dared ask. Why stars died. Why humans sang when they were sad. Why Elias flinched when he heard certain alarms. She learned human languages quickly, adopted human habits strangely, and laughed at things that made no logical sense. Elias learned Aurelian customs in return. He learned how they marked time by stellar resonance instead of calendars, how they believed family was chosen as much as born. Most dangerously, he learned to love her. The galaxy watched carefully. Every major power monitored Kalith's development. Analysts tracked fluctuations in probability fields around her, measuring whether her abilities were manifesting at full strength. There were whispers that once she reached maturity, she could reshape political reality. And there were whispers that Elias Ward was a liability. The crisis came when Kalith turned 12, old enough, by Aurelian standards, to choose her bonded guardian. The council summoned them to the Citadel, a structure suspended in folded space where every major species maintained a presence. The chamber was vast, cold, and filled with beings who measured time in millennia. The speaker addressed Kalith directly. "You must choose your future," the speaker said. "You may be raised among the council, trained to restore balance to the galaxy. Or you may be placed with one of the great houses who can protect you." Kalith looked around the chamber. She saw hunger disguised as duty, fear disguised as reverence. Then she looked at Elias. He stood behind her, hands clasped, knowing he had no right to be here and unwilling to leave. "I choose my father," Kalith said. The chamber erupted. The speaker raised a hand. "Clarify, child. You have no living kin." "I choose the one who stayed," she replied. "I choose the one who did not want me for power. I choose Elias Ward." Silence fell like a blade. "A human cannot raise an Aurelian," one delegate protested. "This is unprecedented." Kalith stepped forward, her glow intensifying. "So was my extinction," she said. Probability bent. The council felt it then, the terrifying certainty that forcing her hand would shatter something far worse than political order. Futures diverged wildly in their predictive matrices. Wars ignited. Stars went dark. And in one quiet, stable thread of possibility, Kalith remained with Elias. The vote was swift after that. Elias was granted full guardianship under a newly written statute. The galaxy, reluctantly, accepted it. Years passed. Kalith grew, not into a weapon, but into a bridge. Under Elias's guidance, she learned restraint, empathy, and the strange human ability to value one life as much as a billion. Her powers matured slowly, tempered by love rather than ambition. When conflicts arose, she did not rewrite outcomes. She influenced understanding. She nudged compassion. The galaxy healed, unevenly, imperfectly, but without another extinction. Elias grew older. Humans always did. On a quiet station orbiting a blue star, Kalith sat beside him as his breathing slowed. His hair was silver now, his hands unsteady, but his eyes were warm. "Did I do okay?" he asked. She took his hand, her glow soft and steady. "You changed the galaxy," she said, "by choosing me when you didn't have to." He smiled. "Guess that makes you my greatest project." When he passed, the stars held their breath. The galaxy waited to see what the last Aurelian would do. Kalith stood alone beneath the sky, grief echoing through probabilities untold. Then she did something no one predicted. She mourned, and she chose to remain exactly who he had raised her to be. Not a ruler, not a god, but a daughter who had chosen her father, and in doing so, taught the galaxy what power truly was. And for the first time in centuries, the future felt human.